Friday, gotta get down on Friday. Everybody's looking forward to the weekend. Hey, what's going on? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I think I told you last week my pet peeve is when people say Friday. You know what's worse than that is when people say brekkie for breakfast. So if you ever call brekkie breakfast, if you call it brekkie, you are excommunicated from this group. So you've been warned. So no brekkie pictures and no Friday words. Okay, well, that's rule number 4. Optimize life rule number 4. All right. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. Glad you made it to day 12. So welcome. Great to see you all. Okay, give me 1 second. I gotta move some windows around here. Alrighty-o. All right. Hey, real preview. Tomorrow's email is going to have a lot in it. It's going to be catch-up day tomorrow. Not catch-up the food product, but it's going to be intentionally a chance for you to catch up, because we have just gone ballistic these first 12 days, and we've just been learning so much. It's kind of been at a blitzkrieg of a... Sarah, no, you cannot have brekkie of Friday. How do I unfriend Sarah? Okay, unfriended. All right, Sarah's not with us anymore. But tomorrow's catch-up day. So you're just going to have a chance to catch up, to take a breather. If you have not done day number 1 stuff, setting up your environment to win, by day 12, this is where you need to start. You need to go all the way back to the beginning. Like those... I'm trying to think of like a board game that kind of makes you go all the way to, it's like the Chutes and Ladders game. You know, that big, long slide that we'd always land on? It's kind of like that. If you have not gotten to day 12 and setting up your environment to win by ditching the unholy trinity of food-like substances, it's really no point in going on. That might sound harsh, and you might get a couple things out of this, but everything is meant to, again, build on itself. So this is just a chance for you to kind of go back if you've missed any of the days. as far as the videos go, you can go back and check one of those out. You can, just figure out what you need to work on. So Saturday, tomorrow is going to be just a little breather day. And then Sunday and then on Monday, we kind of start a little bit more focus on exercise. We're going to touch on that today, a little bit later on, but that's going to be kind of the focus. So strap in, kind of get yourself ready and prepared. I promise it won't be too harsh for you. So, all right. Hey, a couple things before I jump into today's email. Michael had an interesting comment, and it was talking about just calories, and so I kind of wanted to just touch on what that is. That's kind of something we've heard forever, right? About not all of us have fat loss goals, but maybe you've heard that before. It's just like, okay, calories are to be a fat burning person or to lose weight. Let's just keep it in that context for a second. If you want to lose weight, you have to be in a caloric deficit, which means that you need to burn more calories than you're taking in. And so it sounds so simple. It sounds like we're like just our bodies are like a mathematical equation, and if we just burn more calories than we take in, everything is going to be fine. And so on one side of that, that's absolutely true. 100% true is that you cannot lose extra body fat or weight unless you are in a caloric deficit. A pound of body fat is roughly 3,500 calories. So every time you lose a pound of body fat, you are pretty much eating 3,500 calories kind of off your bod. So think about that. When you step on the scale and you've only seen it go down a pound, you're like, where? I only lost a pound this week. I'm like, no, you were probably in a caloric deficit of 3,500 calories, which that's pretty cool, right? The problem is with when you're trying to attribute calories. By the way, if you can remember, and I didn't do great in physics class in high school, but if you can remember, maybe some of you guys are more physicsy than I am, but I remember back in, maybe it was chemistry, but I think it was physics class where we kind of learned that a calorie is a measurement of heat. And so somewhere along the way, and I don't remember exactly where it was, I think it was in the 20s, some lady wrote a book and started attributing this measurement of heat to food. And it's stuck ever since then. And her point was, and again, I can't remember the reference. If one of you guys know, let me know what that is. I'll Google it later, maybe if I want, but it's very uninteresting. But she said that, eventually we're going to start looking at food as not food anymore, but we're going to just see them as calories. We're just going to be looking at not an apple, but hey, that's 160 calories. And so we've kind of been in that mode, I think, since the 1920s. So for a long time, like 100 years or so, where we've kind of maybe not looked at food that way just as calories, but man, how much of that has shaped just diet culture. It's like, oh, I need to limit my calories. When I was growing up, there was this soda called Tab that came out, and it was in a nice pink can, and it looked really good, but it was the 1 calorie drink, and I didn't know what that was. But even since I was a little kid, there was always this talk of like too much calories gonna make you fat kind of thing. And so here's why I think tracking calories is not really helpful for us. I think it is helpful in a certain way, and I kind of put this in Michael's post too. It's like sometimes you can track your food, for instance, in MyFitnessPal for a day, and you can say, for the last 10 days or so, I've kind of averaged 2,000 calories. And then you can begin to say, okay, that's kind of what I need, I guess, to kind of function. And maybe you'll say, hey, that's kind of like my baseline. How many calories are you burning? Who knows? And that's the problem. I go back to MyFitnessPal in a second, but one of the problems of using heat measurements to talk about food and the body is that our bodies are not a science lab experiment. It would be great if we lived in a vacuum, if we were up in space and there was no other, if everything was a vacuum, right? But nothing exists in a vacuum. So for instance, how many calories does sleep have? We talked about that yesterday, right? Just getting good sleep. So how many calories is that? Or how many calories added is bad sleep? How many calories are in chronic stress? How many calories are in getting fresh air and sunlight? So I think you see what I'm getting at here. It's like it's a lot more complicated than just measuring calories for food and trying to put it in some equation. And this is why, for instance, I well, I had a hard time losing weight. I'll talk about that later on, what I did all wrong. But even when I started to kind of get healthy and start to track macros and pay attention to calories a couple of years ago, what I would do is I figured out, okay, here's the maximum calories I can have during the day. And if I go over that, then I'm probably going to not have the scale move down as much. And that was like the goal for me, is to lose my 50 pounds of excess body fat. So there'd be a certain day where, let's just say it was 2,000, just a nice round number. I needed to have like 2,000 calories, but I would eat and be totally, maybe I would go over it one day. I went over like 2,100 calories, and I was just like, I feel guilty, I feel shameful, and that's not good. So, but it was probably because my body needed it, right? Remember we talked about hunger signals. That is your guide, your hunger signals, and the more that you can pay attention to that, you don't have to be afraid of hunger. That's kind of been diet culture for decades. It's just like, put that hunger down. Just use your willpower. I know you're hungry, but shut up. Just tough it out and just be hungry all the time. And that is really great for fast weight loss. Bad for just any kind of sustainability and living life to the fullest. But so I would feel guilty about it, and I'm like, okay, I'll do better tomorrow. I'll try to make sure that I'm not so hungry tomorrow. But there might be a day where I had 1,700 calories. And I would look at that, and I put that in my Fitness Pal, and I get to the end of the day, and I'm not hungry, but you know what? Hey, I get to kind of reward myself with 300 extra calories of food. So what can I eat now that's like 300 calories? I got some margin and some space in there. And I look back at that now, and I'm like, what a dumb way to have a relationship with food. To say, oh, I get to reward myself with extra calories even though I'm not hungry. So I don't think we're a mathematical equation. I don't think that we are a measurement solely of heat exchange. And who wants to be anyway, right? What we're supposed to be doing is having nutrient-dense food, self-honoring food, supportive food for all of our, not just health goals, but maybe your health goal is just to stay alive, and to stay alive for a long amount of time. And for the long amount of time you stay alive, you're supposed to operate with efficiency and joy and passion, and just where everything is optimized and operating like it should. And I don't think tracking calories is a great way to do that. But again, I'm not ripping too much on calories because my Fitness Pal says this is what you need. Who knows? It's just kind of using a standard for everybody. But again, I probably mentioned this before too, I used to just get on a treadmill at the gym, and I would say, oh, look at that. I just burned 300 calories. I would watch the little counter go down. I hit like 300. I'm like, yeah, baby. And my yeah, baby was either for two reasons. One is like I felt guilty because I had a crappy breakfast, maybe like of a muffin or something like that. So I'm like, yeah, I just worked off that muffin or that donut. Yeah. Or I would say, yeah, 300 calories. I get to have a little something for a lunch or a snack, a sinful goodie or something like that. Again, bad relationship with food when it comes to that. When you're looking at a calorie counter on a treadmill and counteracting the bad decision you made at breakfast or preemptive strike for the bad decision you're going to make at lunch. Does that make sense? And so just a cruddy way to have a relationship with food, in my humble opinion. The other thing I want to say about calories, and then I'll move on. People that, and a lot of health coaches do this, and they still are in that sort of calories in, calories out mindset. And again, I get it, because that is absolutely true. You have to burn more than you take in. But they would look at, let's just say, 300 calories of a chocolate donut and 300 calories in a like 4-ounce piece of salmon. And they would say it does the same thing, right? It does the exact same thing. So if you're trying to lose weight, maybe just eat half the donut and then half the salmon. And I would look at those two food items, and even though they're the same calories, they are going to react way differently in the body. So we're not just, we all know this experientially, right? You have a piece of salmon, 4 ounces of that, and you're going to be satiated a lot longer than a stupid chocolate donut is going to satiate you. One is going to cause an insulin spike. One is going to make you hungry in 2 hours. One is going to do a rise in your blood sugar. And so again, we are so much more complicated than a calories in, calories out equation. And so yeah, it's a good tool to kind of have in the tool belt, but not anything you want to sort of live your life around. Okay, enough about calories. Let's move on to more exciting stuff. So here's a post from Peanut. Peanut says, and this is a little bit of yesterday's stuff. I have a Fitbit watch, and I know it's probably not the most accurate for tracking sleep, but it regularly shows me that going into some deep sleep cycles early in the night, and then the rest and majority of the night is between light and REM sleep. Is that normal, or should the deep sleep continue cycling into the morning? So Katie, everything that I've read is that that's kind of the way it should work, is that our deepest sleep is going to be, I mean, it varies by what people go to bed at, but so for me, it'd be like 2 hours into my night. So right around like 11 or 12, that's when most of the melatonin in our systems are ratcheted up. So think like anywhere from like 2 to 3 hours after you go to sleep. That's usually when we're going to get the most deep, the most restful sleep. And then what's happening in our body is that we're on this like circadian rhythm in this clock, and it's starting to have, it's crossfading. So you got melatonin, the sleep hormone, the thing that's kind of getting you sleepy and keeping you asleep is ramping down, and then it's kind of crossfading with cortisol that's starting to ramp up. And by the way, cortisol gets kind of a bad rap, and a lot of us think of that as the stress hormone. But if you didn't have cortisol in your life, you would never wake up. Yeah, so cortisol is a great thing, and the way that it works, or you want it to be working, is that you want melatonin during the night to just slowly go down. You want cortisol to slowly ramp up, and by the time that you wake up, hopefully not to a blaring alarm every morning, but you just kind of slowly waking up naturally, and then you feel great. That's how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to feel really good in the morning because cortisol is at its peak, and it kind of trails off for the rest of the day. So everything that I've read and studied and researched, Katie, that's exactly how it should be working. So I would say, yeah, you don't want to be sleeping deep all the way through the night. And it will feel like it maybe sometimes. I mean, if you slept 8 hours and you're like, oh, I just had the greatest night's sleep. But if you kind of looked at your Fitbit or your Apple Watch or your Oura Ring or whatever you use to track sleep cycles, it might say, oh my gosh, I only got this much of deep sleep and this much of REM and all that kind of stuff. But I think, better question. This actually goes to your second question. I'll just read that. Are naps, well, actually, let me say this before I go there. I think a good metric, better than, and this might be kind of obvious, but the metric that we really want to pay attention to is not what our watch says. Hey, it says I got good sleep. Whoa. Or it says, hey, I got terrible sleep. I mean, just really want to go how you feel, right? You really want to be a master detective in your life to say, how did it feel? Because a lot of times, like an Oura Ring, for instance, and I think that's a really cool gadget. I've never bought one, but that's kind of, if you don't know what that is, it's a sleep tracker. It looks like a little ring, and it does all sorts of really cool measures of stuff. But I don't want to look at my Oura Ring and pull up my smartphone and Bluetooth it and to say, it says that I'm well rested and I can go for an awesome workout today and I feel terrible. Or the opposite, where it says, you did great last night in your sleep, but you're walking around and you're like, ugh, no thanks. So it's one of the two. And so I don't want to pay any attention to what a piece of technology. Again, I think it can be helpful, but for the most part, have your intuition and how you're feeling be the guide, the first and foremost guide. If you wake up and your sleep tracker says you slept terrible last night, but you feel great, hey, go with that instead. Go with like, hey, I feel great from last night, and I'm going to maybe do a workout today that I wouldn't normally have done because I feel great. So feeling great is the metric that we really want to use above any kind of wearable fitness gear. But if it gives you good metrics and you kind of like it, then that's cool too. So I'm not throwing shade on any wearable tech or anything like that. Next question. Are naps the sleep equivalent to snacking, or are they allowed if it doesn't prevent you from sleeping that night? I'm a big fan of naps. I love me some naps, but it only works for me because I feel really good after napping. And I nap a lot. I'm not going to tell you how often I do because it's kind of embarrassing. By the way, I remember Dan Rather. I don't know if he used to or still does this, but I know he used to take naps. Take a little Dan Rather nap in his office. So he would close the blinds and put a sign on his door and, it says Dan's napping, all that kind of stuff. And I always thought that was kind of cool. He probably got a lot of ridicule for that, but he just knew that he needed to have a daily nap on his sofa in his office to function and give us the nightly news. And I don't know why naps are so maligned in our society. It's not like that everywhere. Maybe you've heard the siesta before the fiesta. A lot of businesses used to, I don't know if they still do this, but like in Mexico, for instance, they would close down and have like a siesta hour, and everyone kind of goes and chills out and sleeps and naps and rests, and then they open up for business again later on in the afternoon. So I'm all about siestas. If I get 6 hours of sleep a night, I'm like scheduling a nap the next day because I want to make sure that I get like at least 1 hour, maybe even 2 hour nap, but most of the time just like a 1 hour nap, and I feel great after that. So again, I'm using kind of my own personal feelings to say, hey, there's no hard and fast rules about that because I feel awesome after a nap. I did a little poll in my other Facebook group not too long ago about like naps, like how long does people naps a day, and it was almost like half the people loved naps, and the other half just said, I can't do it. And I feel so groggy after a nap, and it ruins my sleep the night of, and so some people can do it, and so I mean, us career nappers were like, man, that's got to be terrible. But I would just again pay attention to how you feel. If naps rejuvenate you through the day, take that break out of your day and get yourself some Z's. If it doesn't ruin your sleep coming up, go for it. Just use your body as your guide, because that's going to be the thing I think that's going to tell you whether that's approved or not approved for your own life. You also said still have the chili pad on my wish list, and maybe that's what I'll use my overtime bonus money on, because I'm feeling tired of feeling tired. Yeah, I just want to say a little bit about. I mean, the chili pad is a great piece of technology. It's I love this thing, but I would kind of like to say a little bit about investments into your health, and I use that term investments a lot because these things that you are buying, that you're putting in your Amazon cart, I'm not saying to run out and buy every single piece of fitness gear or something for your health right away, but begin to see these things as just like not costs, but like as investments, right? Like these things are so important. By the way, just personally, I mean, I've gotten so addicted to feeling great all the time that's the only thing I really get a lot of joy on spending on myself now. Is like going to the grocery store. I've turned into such an old man. Oh my gosh. I just get excited when I go into a grocery store. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to like splurge on a bottle of kombucha. It's like $3, or something like that, or going to Costco and buying all sorts of varieties of nuts and grass-fed beef and meats and things like that. But again, I look at those things as not, costs or not as expenses, but I look at them as these are investments that are going to give me a great return. So if it's a better return on me feeling great all the time, I'm going to make that investment. And so, those chili pads, they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. I had to really stretch to fit it. I might have even charged it and said, I'm just going to pay this off kind of thing. And that's probably a stupid financial. By the way, this is not a financial group, right, for growth, so I can give you bad financial advice. Yeah, charge that thing, man. Charge that thing and pay it off later. Don't do that. Don't be stupid. But at the same time, again, when you begin to see these things as investments, I'm like, I just bought a heavier kettlebell, and that came in the mail a couple weeks ago, and I really didn't want to do it because I'm just like, I just don't want to spend any more money on this stuff. But I began to see that, like, no, that's an investment that I need that's going to pay dividends in my life. And so, I'm not a big time investor, but have you ever seen like those lately, for instance, like if you would have spent $1,000 on Bitcoin in 2013, it would be $2 million right now. And if you're like me, we think, oh, wouldn't that have been great if I would have known that, that we play these games. Like if I just would have bought that much Bitcoin now, then how much it would be worth now? And, but we don't know that kind of stuff, but we all understand like the return on investments kind of thing. And so we want to definitely invest in ourselves and invest in your health. And by the way, you being here in this group and investing your time and your money and your resources and your energy to be part of this group, that's an investment, and it's going to pay off. And we want to make sure that we get the best return for these investments. So begin to see these investments in your health that will pay off. You're going to get an amazing return on that. So yeah, go buy yourself some chili pads or whatever else you need. And again, it doesn't have to be overnight for everything, just we'll talk about this later on in the month. But my favorite health tip, it's my mantra, is make a small change every week. That's it. It's very boring. It's not too sexy, but that's my health mantra. Make a small change every week. And so maybe a small change for you. Maybe like it's 1 week it's going to be investing in a chili pad, and that's a big change. But next week it might be just switching from non-organic broccoli to our organic broccoli. Something pretty uninspiring. Or maybe the next week it's I'm going to buy a 10-pound heavier kettlebell, and then the week after that is I'm going to add one more squat to my squat routine. I mean, so just these little teeny investments that will pay off for you over time. And it's kind of that compounding interest thing. You begin to make an investment here, an investment here, an investment here, and you do this week in and week out, day after day. Man, you're not even going to be recognizable in a year's time. This comes from a book called Atomic Habits, probably my favorite book I read a couple of years ago. And this is James Clear. He kind of graphed it out and said, if you make a 1% improvement in your life every day, so 1%, just a teeniest little 1%, in a year's time, you'll be 33%, no, you'll be 33 times the person you are right now. So think about that, 365 days of making just like a 1% improvement in your life. And a year's time, you'll be 33 times the man or woman you are today. So that's pretty crazy. And conversely, let's say you get 1% worse every day. And we know how easy that is, right? We know how easy it is to slip into patterns and to resume habits that are not supportive for us and to kind of just like drag butt. COVID has not made this any easier for a lot of us, right? We just kind of got 1% worse every day. If you get 1% worse every day, you will whittle down to pretty much 0.01% of who you are today. I mean, you'll be like next to nothing. And so that's just kind of a cute little way of like graphing for my left brainers out there. It's just like, hey, if we just make small little investments and small little choices to propel our health journey forward for a long amount of time, you're not even going to be recognizable in a year's time or 2 years time or 3 years time. And that's the journey I'm on for the rest of my life, trying to figure out how can I feel better all the time. You know, what's the hack? What's the secret I can do to just feel a little bit better? And I want that for all of you too. Okay. Let's see if there's anything over here. Okay. Nope, can't see Sarah's comments because we excommunicated her. All right, exercise. So this is the second part of the exercise. Remember the first part was all about kind of changing your position. So if you're sitting down, you need to not sit down as much. If you're standing up all the time, you need to not stand up as much. So just kind of changing your position throughout the rest of the day. So when you think about exercise, it doesn't really feel like exercise. So this is part 2, and I said that they're going to get progressively more intense and harder, but this one's still pretty easy. It has to do kind of with movement again, so we want to make sure that we are moving our bodies with low-level aerobic activity. And so when you think of aerobics, maybe you're thinking of what I usually think of when aerobics, like Jane Fonda and those leg warmers and the jazzercises and all those kinds of things. But really aerobic has to do with just our heart rate. We're able to sustain kind of a comfortable or maybe an elevated heart rate, but you can do it for a long amount of time. And so you don't want to have that going too high. So when you think of aerobics, I want you to think of, well, I'll get to that equation in a second because it's pretty amazing. But here's the thing about low-level aerobic activity is that it gives you energy. Okay, so exercise that will give you energy as opposed to zapping it. And all of us have done workouts before trying to make up for lost time with some kind of super workout. And you know how you feel afterwards? Absolutely zapped. Maybe it's for a day, maybe it's for a couple of days where you're just like, your muscles are sore, you're tired, you're cranky, you're craving more junk food. And so that's not the kind of exercise that any of us really need or want. We want to have exercise that gives us energy. That's the point. That's the whole point of exercising, is to give you energy, to make you feel better, right? Instead of zapping it away. And so I want to give you a couple of like tips and things to do for this to just kind of get more movement in. We talked about kind of changing our seating positions. This is all about just getting our bodies moving. Okay. I want to say this. This is a little disclaimer. I pride myself of being a workout minimalist. Okay, so I want to be a minimalist when it comes to working out. I personally don't enjoy it that much. And so, but I love the benefits of it, and it's a non-negotiable for me to live a happy life. So I got to do it. It's not an option for me to not exercise. But I don't like it in the moment. I don't like being uncomfortable, and I just don't like the misery, right? If you do, awesome, but most of us really don't like being uncomfortable. And exercise is kind of a willful putting yourself into uncomfortable discomforts. Is that a double negative? Makes, it's uncomfortable and it gives us discomfort, right? So we don't enjoy that. Most of us don't enjoy that, but most of us understand the benefit of doing that. But I definitely, I'm a minimalist because I want to do the minimum. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm a health coach and I run with a bunch of fitness people, and it's kind of embarrassing, all these people that love like working out and I don't. And so I'm trying to get away with the most minimum. If I can find out a way to get the same amount or more benefit by doing less, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I am going to always tend towards that. So a little bit of disclaimer when you hear my movement tips is that that's coming from a place of I'm not training for a marathon. If you are, God bless you, man, and go live long and prosper. If you are training for an ultra marathon, you want to run 100 miles and do those kinds of things, or if you want to swim the English Channel or something like that, you might have different goals. But for most of us, at least for me, I'll just speak for myself, I don't have those goals. I just want to be lean. I want to feel great. I want to have my body operate the best way possible, and I want to operate with as much joy and passion during the day. And whatever I can do to help me do that, that's what I want to do. So I want to keep my neck. I don't want to be a bodybuilder. I don't want to be in any kind of bodybuilder competition, strutting the stage and, greasing up and all that kind of stuff. No Hans and Franz for me. By the way, did I just date myself with the Hans and Franz reference? Sarah doesn't know what I'm talking about. You have to Google that, Sarah. Hans and Franz. Pump you up, baby. Anyway, okay, so low-level activity workouts that are aerobic. Here's the first one, is to go for a walk, if you're able, which means that if you are, I'm not assuming that everyone can walk. If you don't have two legs or if you're in a wheelchair or whatever it is, I want to be sensitive to all that. But if you're able to, if you can walk, this is what you need to do. It's the most underrated exercise on the planet. It's so underrated that we don't even think of it as exercise. Kind of like changing our position. We don't ever think that just plain old walking is actually super, super good for you. If you have fat loss goals, walking is I think the best exercise. Well, it's not the best one. That's coming up in the fourth one. But let's just say it's the most underrated exercise you can do. And most of us can go for a simple 30-minute walk a day. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It can be less than that. But most of us can just get outside, get some fresh air, and just go for a walk. We can do this, right? On days that I'm looking out my door right now, I live in a part of the country, we just got like 3 or 4 inches of snow. And where I live, 3 or 4 inches of snow is catastrophic for where I live. We are not prepared to deal with that. So most of the grocery store shelves are empty, and everyone's holing up inside. Like that's any different than the last 11 months. But anyway, you need to strap on some nice clothes. Here's one of my favorite sayings. There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad equipment. All right, so you got to make sure that it's not always, well, I look out there and it's not 80 degrees and it's not sunny, so I better not go for a walk today. It's like, no, you can do this every single day. And I'm saying, there might be some extreme conditions. I just talked to my mom who lives in Kansas City, and it's like 6 degrees, and my mom does not need to be walking in 6-degree windy weather. But for the most part, just put on some layers, man. Get a down jacket, get on some boots, get on some long underwear. You don't have to look pretty, and no one's going to notice anyway because there's no one out there. I was out there this morning. I was the only one walking in my city, the only one on my walk. I didn't see one person. It was just me and my dog this morning. Of course, it was really early and it was snowy, but again, we just were bundled up, and it was pleasurable, and getting that movement in is just so important. I mean, all the benefits of that, and I list some in the email, but it helps you lose body fat. If you don't think walking helps you lose body fat, can I give you my quick little story? I went to a health conference a couple of years ago in Miami Beach, and I stayed at one of those Airbnbs, and I had to walk through like South Beach. I think it was about 3 miles each way from the conference hotel to my Airbnb. And I was like, maybe we should just get a Uber and get there kind of quickly, or a Lyft or something like that. But I'm like, I'm just going to walk because it's like such a beautiful place. I would leave a little bit early and I would walk for 3 miles. And then after the conference was over, I would walk back. It was great being in Miami too in the middle of July because it was really hot, but I didn't care. I just like take off my shirt and get some rays, and did this walk. During this conference, it was about like a 4-day conference. I ate so much food. It was a health conference, so it was all like really awesome, healthy, extravagant food, but I just ate tons and tons of food. And I got home and I was just like, ugh, what's the scale going to say? And I actually lost 2 pounds over those 4 days. I don't know if it had anything to do with me walking 6+ miles a day, but I think it did. But I've been a believer ever since then, that I'm just like, oh, I was just still thinking that walking is kind of what grandmas do and grandpas do. By the way, I'm a grandpa, so I guess I should be walking. But I thought it was just for old people, like mall walkers and stuff like that. But man, I experienced that, and I've never been the same ever since then. So I want you to go on a walk, and I want it to be slow. I don't want you to be huffing and puffing. I don't want you to feel like you need to wear a weighted vest, like a jacket, to make an extra workout. By the way, if you want to do that, totally cool. I mean, you're just going to get more benefits from that. But I want us to not be underwhelmed with the advantages of going for a long, slow, and I say long, 30 minutes. It could be longer, it could be shorter, but here's the great thing about a walk. You get home and you don't have to lay on the couch like, you don't have to huff and puff. You're not laying in a pool of sweat. By the way, all of my workouts, all of them, even the most intense ones, no recovery whatsoever, none. You know, if I ever have sore muscles, it's because I maybe did something new or changed it up a little bit. But again, I'm not ever having to recover on the couch from a workout. That's what I want to do. I don't ever want to have to repair and recover for days and feel sore. If there's a way I can get around that, all the better. But we don't do that after a low level, slow, luxurious stroll walking. By the way, if you have a dog, that's another reason to get out and walk. Your dog needs this. And so, you know, have that be your accountability partner and build up the habit of doing this with your dogs. Your dog needs it. And shame on you if you're a dog owner and you never walk your little poochie, man. But just do it together. That's something you guys can do together. And hey, you got a workout buddy. Some of us don't want to work out alone. So I want you to think, hey, going for a workout today, going to take Fido or Rex or whatever your dog's name is, go for just a 20, 30-minute walk. And know it's going to help you lose body fat. Prevents heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. These are things that fight this, okay? Strengthens bones and muscles, improves your mood. Best way to fight, or one of the best ways to fight depression, is by exercising. And when you go outside, for instance, and by the way, can I just say, it doesn't have to be outside. You can walk inside. If you have a treadmill and you want to walk in a room, that's totally fine. If you want to walk around your sofa when it's 6 degrees out, do that. That's totally fine. But I think, yeah, just like when you just do some low level like walking, especially outside, it improves your mood. It circulates your blood and it releases good endorphins and hormones, and it just makes you feel better. And I always feel great after a walk. Every time I, just getting fresh air, and I do it at the sun rising, and I stare at my eyeballs at the sun. That's really, really good for sleep. But it's also just a time where I can just chill. It's quiet. Not many people are out. That's why I love doing it, kind of like the first light of the day. It's just a blast, and I've grown to love it. And I used to just hate walking. It's like, again, just something that old people do. Well, I guess when you become old like me, it's to an advantage. But I encourage you, if you are young, get this habit locked in. Just a daily walk is going to get you in the habit of just moving your body. And you don't have to, again, when it becomes something that you just do like for a month straight, it just becomes a habit. You don't even have to really think about it anymore. And you'll just kind of get up in the morning and you'll just put on your walking clothes and you'll go out no matter what the weather is, and you begin to do this over and over. And again, you're just putting miles and miles on, and it has a great cumulative effect. So it improves your mood, it improves balance, it improves coordination, it oxygenates your blood, so all the good things. And again, hardly any bad. I've never had an injury walking that I know of. So it's got all the good and none of the bad. So I'm a big fan, if you haven't guessed it. All right, so let's talk about running, for instance. So let's say you do want to do some low-level aerobic activity. You do want to go for a run. I think a run every now and then is really good. Like once in a while I'm on my walk, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to run the last half mile. I just kind of feel like it for whatever reason or something like that. But just here's the caveat. If you are trying to lose weight, if that's a goal for you, just running is terrible for that. So don't ever think that you're going to burn extra calories or you're just going to do more, running to lose weight. Man, When I was a member of a gym before I canceled it because of COVID, my favorite phrase. Anyway, there's this guy, and this is going to sound judgmental, but I'm not judging the guy at all. But in the 5 years, I think, that I've been to this gym, I've seen him on the same treadmill every single time I'm there. You know, he's there. He is so disciplined. He is always like running on this treadmill, and he is the same exact weight he was when I first met him 5 years ago. And again, I'm not making any kind of value statement or judgment. I don't know anything that's going on in his life, but it's just like, man, it's like if this guy is trying to lose weight on a treadmill, which I kind of a sneaking suspicion that he is, I just want to like love on this guy. You know, I'm not going to approach him and say, hey, fatty, here's a better way to do it. You know, but it's just like, how many of us did this? I mean, that's my story. That's my story personally, because that's why I think I relate to this guy, because for 3 years I did nothing but cardio. I became a cardio junkie. I went for 2.5 mile runs religiously every single day. When that wasn't really working for me because I had 50 pounds to lose, I'm like, well, I'm going to get serious, and now I'm going to join a gym. So instead of, you know, half an hour of cardio a day, I'm going to do like an hour and a half. So I would go to the gym and I would do, you know, treadmills, stairmasters, rowing machines, ellipticals, all the cardio. I did them all. And so I did that for 2 years straight, like almost an hour and a half a day, and I lost none pounds. And so I understand physiologically what was happening now, is that, all right, real quick science lesson. I'll try to make this brief, but here's what happens when you overtrain with cardio. Right, you're huffing and puffing. You're on the cardio machine, or maybe you're going out for a run and you do this for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or something like that. What's happening is you're in this black hole of cardio, okay? And so what's happening is that your glycogen stores in your muscles are being burned up for energy, and that's kind of good. But then when you get back from the cardio, when you're huffing and puffing and you're in your pool of sweat and you're laying on the couch for the next 3 days to recover, you are going to crave more sugary foods. That's just kind of how it works. And the reason you're craving is because your body is saying, hey, loser, you just kind of depleted all of your glycogen stores in your muscles. You better get some quick hits of that back. And so maybe you'll, you know, make a healthy choice and choke on a couple bananas or something like that. But most of us run to the cookies and cakes and sodas and things like that. The Gatorades, right, to kind of replenish all of that sugar that we've lost and all that glycogen we've lost, and then we kind of remain at a stasis there. And so that's one of the reasons that for like running is terrible for fat loss. And so again, walking is tons better for that. But if you are going to do some cardio and some pretty intense cardio, just a good baseline is an equation you can use. Before the equation, 20 minutes is a good baseline. Okay, so you're gonna want to like not run or do cardio more than 20 minutes. Maybe you're training for something longer than that. Maybe you want to be an ultra marathoner and do one of those 112 milers or wherever they are. But if you do have just some intense cardio, I would suggest no more than 20 minutes. Okay, so 20 minutes is about all you need to like train. So if you're gonna run on a treadmill or go for a jog, just no more than 20 minutes. Okay. So 20 minutes is a good standard for that. And then the father of modern running, Dr. Phil Maffetone, came up with this formula. So this guy knows what he's talking about. He's like the pioneer of modern running. He came up with this formula. It's 180 minus your age. Okay, so pull out a calculator, or if you can do simple math in your head, put 180 and minus your age, and that's going to give you your heart rate that you need to kind of base your low-level aerobic training activities in. And so if you have an Apple Watch or any kind of pulse taker thingy, I don't even know what those are, you know, just anything that's going to measure your heart rate, that's kind of where you want to train at. That's going to where you, if you're on a treadmill, for instance, and you hook yourself up to the kind of those little electrodes that show you what those are, it's going to give you, hey, this is a place where I can be where, and I'll tell you what it feels like. 180 minus your age is where you're able to exercise and you're able to carry on a conversation with somebody. Okay, so you're not going to be huffing and puffing where you can't really talk. Your breathing's going to be elevated, your heart rate's going to be elevated, but not to the point where you can't have a conversation with somebody. Maybe you see people that are going on runs, like a husband and wife or some friends, and they're kind of talking with each other. That's probably a good place to be with your heart rate in terms of Phil Maffetone's 180 minus your age for peak performance. And again, I would just say use your intuition. There it goes again. It's just like, hey, how is this run making me feel, or how is this training? Because it's so easy. It's so easy to overdo our training with cardio. Maybe you love cardio, but I think most of us, people I talk to all the time, like, you work with people and you do no cardio? I do none cardio anymore. Absolutely none. I've gotten great results from that. It doesn't mean that I never get my heart rate up. We'll talk about that when we get to the fourth part of our exercise program later on next week. But so I get my heart rate up. I'll bring this up later, but let me just say this again, because I can say this all day long and every day and twice on Sundays, is that short and intense is always better. Okay, so when you think of workouts, think as brief as possible and as intense as possible. Again, I'm not talking about kind of the low-level walking kind of thing, but if you're going to do any kind of cardio, it's always better to do it short and intense as opposed to kind of medium and long. And so going for a jog for 45 minutes, that's kind of the medium long thing. And by the way, I don't think there's any mammals, there might be some exceptions to that, but they go on just long distance runs. Like who does that? No, I don't think any mammal or anyone in the animal kingdom goes on these sort of just long runs. Maybe birds and they're migrating or something like that. I guess you could kind of say that's kind of a long distance run. But for the most part, there's no mammal that goes out and just like, I think we'd go for like a long run. Animals are really good sprinters. A lot of them are, because they're trying to keep themselves alive from predators. But for us, man, it's like we're one of the few creatures that intentionally goes on these long distance, medium kind of cardio runs. And if you're doing exercise, I think the right way, and I say the right way, the way if you want the most bang for the buck, if you want the most efficient exercises and you want to get the best results from that, short, brief, intense is the name of the game. It's so much better than the kind of medium black hole cardio running for 45 minutes. For me, that just has so much more of the negative than the positive. All right, so I think that's probably all I want to talk about with low-level cardio. So how to start. Another thing I love about my walks is that I always have these plugged in. Sometimes, when I go on a long, extended hike in the mountains, I don't have anything plugged in because I just want to be aware of nature around me, and that might be you as well too. But I love these things because I'm always listening to something. Maybe for you it's music. For me, it's just like podcasts. I love listening to people talk. Probably showing my age with that too, but I love, and it doesn't always have to be about health. Most of the time it is, but I listen to like movie reviews or TV show reviews or whatever, but that's just my time, man. That is Chris time when I'm out on my 30-minute walk. And so what I usually do, I don't have to do this anymore, but what I would do is I would set my timer for 15 minutes. So I'd set my phone for 15 minutes and set a timer on there, and I would just walk. Is not as quickly as I could, but just in a vigorous way for 15 minutes from home, and then all of a sudden the alarm would go off, and I'd just turn around and go back, and sure, 30-minute walk. And so that's a great way to kind of use your phone. You can use that to listen to some music or something educational, whatever inspires you to not have it, whatever it on. But you can also just use that as a timer to say, hey, I'm just going to do this 30 minutes every single day and walk 15 minutes in one place, and then when it hits 15, walk back. So that's just one way that it's worked for me. It's got me into the habit of doing it. And again, it's something that I absolutely enjoy, and hopefully you'll get into the enjoyment of that too. So again, I'm a walking expert. I'm a power walking expert. So if you want to have more walking tips, let me know. So, all right, let's see if there's anything in our Facebook group. Josh says, use it or lose it. I love that so much. I think another way to say that is that your health is going to be your number one priority someday. I'm hoping that you're going to make that day today. Because if you don't, like Josh said, if you don't use what has been given to you, if you are not a good steward of what's been given to you with your body, with your mind, and with your soul, you will lose it, right? And we don't want to lose our faculties with that, because your health will be your number one priority someday. And so just make it today. Don't wait till it's too late to make it your number one priority. And this is going to happen to all of us. And many of you, I'm thinking of a loved one right now in my own life that His health is his number one priority, and it's kind of too late. So it's coming for all of us, where our health is the only thing we think about. It's the only thing that matters to us, and that's why health is wealth. So use it. Yeah, use it or lose it. Get moving so you don't lose it. You'll so wish you did. You're not going to get into your old age and sit in an old folks home someday and go, you know what, I wish I wouldn't have spent all those mornings walking. What a waste of time. You're going to be so glad you did when you're maybe not in the retirement center or the assisted living or the nursing home, having people wipe you and clean you and bathe you and do all that kind of stuff. You will lose it if you don't use it. So use it now. Okay? Yeah, I'm glad you said that. 35 Celsius this morning. See, we're in America, Josh. We don't even know what Celsius is. But that sounds pretty cold, whatever it is. By the way, if it's 0 degrees where you live, Josh, and it's going to be twice as cold tomorrow, what would the temperature be? Think about that for a second. So big time wind chill in Canada. So yeah, Josh, if you can't go outside, you don't have great equipment or clothing, yeah, it'd be good. How else are you going to get your movement in? Josh says exercise is better than Prozac. Thank you for saying that. Man, I could go off on this one, and this isn't going to be an anti-medication rant at all, but have you ever been to a doctor and maybe you've described a mental condition? You've been depressed or you've had the blues or something like that. Has your doctor ever said, well, what are you doing for movement? Are you going for a 30-minute walk outside every day? And if your doctor has not said that, I would suggest firing that doctor, never going to see that doctor again. Please, please, please start with that. I'm not here to say that Prozac's wrong or SSRIs are wrong or bad for you or anything like that, but please start with this. Get movement in. It's so much better. Like nature therapy is so much cheaper than therapy, than clinical therapy, and no side effects. Just moving your body and getting exercise in and walking outside or just moving inside if you have to. That is so much cheaper and with no side effects than things like Prozac. It improves your mood. So resort to that first and foremost. Don't ever neglect movement, because it's going to not only just help you get lean and burn body fat, it's just going to help you feel better as a human being. Human beings are meant to move. We are not meant to be stationary. So make sure you do that. It will improve your mood. It will make you feel happier and more joyful and better. And the copays on it are so much cheaper. Yeah, cardio, no bueno. Yeah, Josh says, doesn't help much and makes you super hungry. Yeah, go figure. That's the thing that makes you super hungry, is depleting all those glycogen stores. Biggest reason people puts nursing homes is falls. Falls happen because of lack of strength and mobility. Yeah, I don't know if you've never noticed that, but people die of falls most of the time. And it's not the fall that kills them, but here's what happens. They've lost all bone density. Let's just say from not walking, from not doing any kind of movement, any strength training or anything like that. And their bones become so brittle that they trip over the cat going to the restroom or something like that. They fall and they break their hip. And the hip breaking is not going to kill them. But what happens? They go to a ER or they go to the emergency room, and they're laying there even more, and that's usually where they catch pneumonia, and all the sputum in their lungs happens, and people die of respiratory illnesses. So this is a quite common malady for most people in our culture. And so, again, yes, if you can think long term about this, depending on how close you are to the end, I'm getting up there. All right, I'm half 100 now, so I'm seeing the end now, and I'm hoping it's my plan is to live till 120. That's my plan. I probably won't make it there because of most of the abuse I did for the first 45 years of my life, but that's my goal now, to see if I can make it to 120, and not just to live long, but to live long with vigor and hopefully just keel over one day, as opposed to breaking my hip, stepping over the dog, and getting pneumonia in a hospital room. So that's not my plan. Of course, that's not anybody's plan, but that's why it's so important to prioritize this health stuff right now. And that is only going to help you today, and it's only going to help you in the long term. Okay, let me go over to YouTube and see if Actually, it didn't look like the YouTube thing streamed today, so I'm going to have to upload that. Let's see if there's any other comments. So yeah, I think that's it. So great job in getting almost 2 weeks of this down. So 10 lives and 12 emails, and you're going to have another couple of days to practice this stuff. So make sure that you take tomorrow to practice and kind of strap in as we talk some more about exercise and some really cool topics next week. So I hope you guys have an awesome weekend wherever you are at. If you're in the polar vortex, try to stay warm and get some movement in. You'll be so happy you did. And then tell us about it. You know, if you post about it, it's going to be 5 points. So post about your movement workout. Give us a picture of you on your walk in the snow or something like that. Josh, I'll give you like an extra point. You'll get 6 points if you post your walking outside and -35 Celsius. Have a great day, guys. Great weekend. Love you all.